Happy Sunday morning, everyone. So you're probably ruining the day that I learned how to use the camera function on my computer. But oh well, here we go. This morning I want to talk about white privilege and the role that that may play in how we view this Ahmaud Arbery case out of Georgia, where the young man was jogging and he was chased by three white men in a pickup truck, and there was a confrontation. He ended up dead. The white men say that they were trying to make a citizen's arrest for burglaries that had been happening in the neighborhood. And I just want to point out that there wasn't a burglary reported in that neighborhood in over 7 weeks. So, you know, think what you want about this case. It's murder. It's filmed. The thing about the video that struck me is that the attorney for the third white man who was actually taking the video leaked it because he felt that the video would exonerate his client and the other men that were involved by saying that if the young man would have just froze, he wouldn't have been shot. And that comment alone, I want to address as far as white privilege goes. I don't think it has to be pointed out that that comment is steeped in racism. These were not men in uniform. These were not authority figures. These were three white men in a pickup truck who were chasing this man who did nothing wrong. And for those of you that are so cocksure and saying, you know, I would have done things differently, or yeah, if he would have just froze, he'd be alive today. For those of you that think they would have done it different, I've got an answer for you. You don't know. And it's impossible for you to know because science is playing here. There's a little thing in your brain called the amygdala, and it controls our fight, flight, or freeze function. It's been around since we were running from saber-toothed tigers. It's important to have because in that split second of trauma, our conscious thought, our frontal lobe, plays no role in our decision making. So you can say, "Hey, I would have froze for these three men. I would have ran. I would have fought them." I mean, the fact of the matter is that you don't know. And the second thing I want to point out is it shouldn't have mattered. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He was being chased by three men who had a gun. Who are we to decide on whether his fight, flight, or freeze reaction to that was right or wrong, right? So, a little bit about white privilege. I know that a lot of men my age, a lot of white men, are afraid of that term. But I want to address it because it's okay to admit that it exists. And as a matter of fact, until we start admitting it exists or starting recognizing it in our own behaviors, we won't ever be able to make good changes in this world. So I want to read a definition of white privilege by Layla Saad. She wrote a wonderful book about this called Me and White Supremacy. That's another scary word for middle-aged white guys. So her definition is white privilege is the reward that white and white passing people receive in exchange for participating in the system of white supremacy, whether that participation is voluntary or involuntary. In order to dismantle white supremacy, you must understand how much white privilege is a key aspect of your life, whether you benefit, whether it's knowingly or unknowingly, from your whiteness, what that means for people who do not receive that same benefit. And how you dismantle it. So that's pretty clear. I mean, it's a system that's rigged in our favor. And I think the idea that if this young black man would have just froze for these white armed men, that he had an obligation to freeze, is a great example of white privilege. A litmus test is always to put yourself or try to empathize with the other person, put yourself in that same position, and see how you would react. So anyhow, and it's okay, it's natural for us to lean on those things that benefit us. We naturally connect on sameness and commonality. We engage in discussion of differences. Many people deny or minimize those differences. We feel that this is the best way to provide support, solidarity. We're all the same. I'm with you. I understand where you're coming from. But if we only connect with sameness, we don't see other part of the other person's reality. So I like to point out, or I like to say that I think the biggest problem that white or men that benefit from white privilege make, even when we're trying to be allies, is that we have a difficult time understanding that other people are seeing life through a different lens than what we see it through. It's easy for us to take a situation, say a black indigenous person of color being pulled over for no apparent reason. A lot of the times when we hear stories like that, our first reaction is like, oh, there must have been something. You must have been misunderstanding. He wasn't making decisions based on race. And the fact that we immediately shut off those truths, it creates issues. It makes us less allies for them. So all I'm suggesting is try to practice some empathy. You may not be able to see the world through another person's lens, but acknowledge that those lenses are there, and that it would behoove us to try to at least empathize with that. Imagine jogging in your neighborhood and all of a sudden 3 people start chasing you and they're armed. That's all you have to do is put yourself into this young man's shoes, and maybe you'll look at it differently. Now, I know that some of my friends, especially on my Facebook friends list, they believe that white men are discriminated against, and to them I just, come on, really? So it always makes me chuckle, and I know that may just piss some of you off, but you don't have it that bad. All right, so happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, all you mothers out there. I know that this has been directed towards the guys, but this is what was on my mind. So now it's time to go and celebrate moms. So have a good Sunday.